What's up, hockey fans? This is episode 72 of the Clappercast. It is a brand new year, and we're just coming up on a brand new season, Sean. I am very excited. How's it going?
Well, it's going great. Just finishing up rereading the Wikipedia page for a podcast here. It's been a while since we did one of these, so I kind of forget what we're doing.
Yeah, how does this go again? What's the process look like? Hopefully this isn't too much of a mess for anyone listening out there.
We've spent the last month writing our team previews for each NHL team leading into the season, which is now starting January 13th, so 9 days from today when we're recording. So you can head to clappercast.com and check those out.
Yeah, so a lot of hot takes in there, so be sure to, let us know if you disagree with some of our opinions. I know I kind of was, not hesitant to share my opinions on teams that would be garbage. So let's
a couple of them were pretty rough.
Let's see if anyone comments on those. But those were a lot of fun to write, and I think it gives us some, kind of lets us focus on teams that we don't really talk about a lot, and I like that. Just learning more about teams, learning more about their depth, learning more about kind of where they're at right now, and kind of put yourself in the shoes of a fan of that franchise, and that's always fun to do as just a hockey fan, right?
Yeah, helps keep track of all the off-season moves too, because you kind of hit training camp and you kind of forget where everyone went in free agency or trades over the off-season. You can kind of catch up on a little bit of those and see who's got the new jersey on this year.
Yeah, back in the day playing the NHL games, it was always kind of fun to, you put the game in and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that guy was on that team, and yeah, so good point. Yeah, there has been a lot of movement, and I think there's still going to be a bit of movement with guys signing PTOs, and there's still some RFAs that are yet to be signed, like Matt Barzal.
A couple of teams need to free up a little bit cap space too, so you might see another cap dump trade or two.
Yeah, and there's actually some pretty substantial injuries out there too, so there could be a lot of things happening here as training camp has just started up. But to kind of tie us over for hockey content, there has been the World Juniors, and so far I've been able to watch most of Canada's games, but they've just stomped teams. They've looked really impressive. What have you thought about the tournament so far, Sean?
The tournament's been really fun to watch, honestly. It's been a long time with very little hockey for a lot of us, so it's nice just to see anything, and year after year this tournament is one of the best couple of weeks of hockey that we're ever going to see. Like you said, Canada has absolutely stomped this year. This could be the best team they have ever iced in the World Juniors. I think they're sitting at like 19 first round draft picks are on the roster right now, and that's not including Alexis Lafreniere and Kirby Dach. And you can see, they beat Germany 16-2 or whatever, and was it Austria they beat 11-0 or something?
Yeah, they've really stomped some teams.
As we're recording this, Canada just beat Russia 5-0 in the semifinals, and they dominated that entire game, like start to finish.
Has there been any other teams that have impressed you? I know Canada's definitely been a standout, but for me, I'll ask you a question, I'll answer it myself. For me,
that's way worse.
Finland, in that game against Sweden, I thought showed a lot of resolve. They were down. They had a disallowed goal because of an offside, and then they ended up coming back and scoring to go ahead 3-2 with like under 30 seconds left. That I thought showed a lot of depth and heart, and that was really impressive. But I think other than that, teams have looked okay, but has there been any other standouts for you?
Yeah, personally, I'm quite impressed with Germany. Knowing what was going on with the team and the roster heading into the opening games when they were down to like 14 skaters for the first couple of games against Finland and Canada because of various players needing to quarantine. They got absolutely demolished by those two teams, but they came back the next game and they beat, was it the Czech Republic they beat? That was a good game.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then in the quarterfinal they played against Russia and they almost beat Russia. They were only...
Yeah, that was unreal.
They were down 2-1 through most of the third period, and they had a number of amazing chances that they almost tied the game up. And for them to kind of come back from where they had started the tournament and to be challenging for, that quarterfinal game against Russia was really impressive. So mad props to them for their resolve through that tournament as well.
Yeah, they were missing some huge pieces. Moritz Seider, the big D man that was a first round pick of the Red Wings, was out. I don't think, did he play at all in the tournament? I don't believe he did. I know he was out at least for the game against Canada, but they were also missing some other substantial players. And how good did Stützle look?
Oh man, he was incredible.
Amazing, hey?
That was kind of, my first experience getting to watch him play, more than like highlight reels. And he can absolutely dominate. He just controls the play every time he's on the ice. It is incredible to watch him.
Yeah, and he was out there a lot.
Yeah, wasn't he playing 30 minutes a game in those first couple?
Yeah, he was out there a lot, playing some hard minutes. He was skating, he was taking hits, he was everywhere. And so it was very unsurprising to see that he went immediately to the Ottawa Senators training camp after Germany got eliminated. So that, I think, if he could play for the Senators, he said that, that's what I'm trying to do.
We're going to see like Stützle and Brady Tkachuk on like a line together. Those two player types generating offense and physicality, and like, wow, it's going to be pretty good for them.
Yeah. I mean, Ottawa's not in a great place, but I really liked the moves that they've made. And I say great places in like their current chances of winning a Stanley Cup. But yes, but moving forward, they have a lot to look forward to. They've got a lot of really great prospects. They've got a lot of young, great players, and they could beat teams just with their speed. And I think once they kind of get settled a bit more, they could be a really good team. But the issue is are they going to pay these guys when their paydays come up? Right? Are they going to keep doing this, or are they going to, commit? So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I know the USA has been great. I haven't really watched any of their games, but it seems like Trevor Zegras has been sniping a lot. Have you been able to watch any of their games?
No, I haven't actually.
I know their goalie was Spencer Knight, had struggles in game one, where he ended up trying to play the puck.
Yeah, that was a rough play.
Failed.
He's been good since, though. I think he kind of settled down after
shake the nerves off a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, the U.S.-Finland semifinal is going to be starting in a little bit after we finish recording here. So we'll have to see what the result is there. But looking at the rosters and kind of how the teams have been playing, I see Canada-U.S. as the most likely outcome.
Mm-hmm. Either way, it'll be a fun final, I think. I'm just hoping that it's a close game no matter who it's against. If it's against USA or Finland, it's been kind of tiring to watch these just blowout games, and it's always more fun to watch a close game no matter who it is. So hopefully it can be a bit closer.
So far through this tournament, any players who have stood out for you, just any team, any players who have kind of impressed you or stood out to you in ways you didn't really think of them before?
I mean, it's kind of a cop-out, but Cousins, I think, has really stood out. I mean, I knew he was a good player, but I didn't know how good he was. And he's been just a huge part of every single game. And, you really see that why he is wearing the C between him and Byram when Kirby Dach went out. But he's just an amazing player, and I think he's going to, perhaps crack the lineup for Buffalo really
Very
soon.
likely.
So he's definitely been kind of the standout of the whole tournament for me. It's just he's amazing. How about you?
A couple of players here. Going back to Germany, there was Florian Elias. I think he spent a lot of time playing with that Stützle line, but he also ended up putting up 9 points in 5 games for himself. And watching him, especially through the end period of that game against Russia, when he was generating offense, creating chances, he was kind of always in the hunt for stuff. He went undrafted, I'm pretty sure, in the last draft. I think he was eligible, but didn't get taken. And a bit undersized, but he made a huge impact through there. So that was pretty impressive, and he probably bumped his stock a little bit with his performance in that tournament. And also the Slovakian goalie, Simon Likotsky. He looked confident. He didn't have the greatest stats, but he looked good, and he kind of kept Slovakia in games a bit longer than they might have been otherwise. And I'm thinking back to one particular play in like one of the opening games, I think against Switzerland. And the end of the third period, there's like less than a minute left. Slovakia's up like 1-0, empty net. Lukotsky catches the puck and he skates out and the play's in Slovakia's zone. Catches the puck, skates out of the crease, and tries to drop it to shoot it down the ice. Gets whistled down before he does anything, but just the confidence to go and do that in the middle of the game or in the middle of the play like that was stood out in my mind big time. But he looked good throughout the rest of the tournament as well, so impressive performance there.
Yeah. Another standout for a different reason, but the most Canadian-sounding Finnish player in existence, Brad Lambert, definitely stood out to me as just someone you don't expect to be Finnish. He's the nephew, I believe, of Lane Lambert, who is an assistant coach of Barry Trotz. So he used to be a coach of the Capitals, and so it's kind of cool to see that. And I thought it was really interesting on the play-by-play how Ray Ferraro was quick to point out, like, this kid's actually Finnish. He's not just like a Canadian that like he wants to play for a national team and moved or something.
Right.
Or it's like the Brett Hull thing where like he's got the dual citizenship
like
or whatever.
Someone who's got like the
it's like
one
no,
parent's
he's
Finnish, one parent's Canadian.
I think so. Yeah, like he was born there, grown up there, played minor hockey there. Like he's like he is Finnish, and so like he doesn't have a super Finnish name, but like he is. So I thought that was kind of cool, and looked like he is quite a good shot. So I don't know, just kind of a different reason to stand out, but I thought it was kind of interesting to see a guy named Lambert on Team Finland. But you mentioned it at the top of the episode, but we are about a week away from the start of the NHL season, and we're fresh off writing all of our team previews, and so we thought it would make sense to jump in and give some thoughts on what Sean wants to call the Western Conference, but
it made sense in my head.
We will call the Northwestern Conference, with the North Division with all the Canadian teams and the Western teams. So, Sean, do you want to start with the West Division first?
Yeah, sure. Let's head over to the West. The West and the West.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to take this division?
It's entirely for me down to Vegas and Colorado. I think Colorado's roster, they're probably going to come through with it. I think just by virtue of the firepower, they might be able to outmuscle Vegas in that category. But it's going to be close between them. St. Louis has a chance, but they're kind of the long shot right now.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree that it's between Vegas and Colorado. Colorado has gotten better offensively, better on defense, and if Grubauer can stay healthy this season, they've got a really good shot at finishing first. But, on the other side, Vegas is still very potent offensively. They've got better on defense with Pietrangelo coming in. They've got like a certified number one D-man, which is they've kind of haven't had until now. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that affects their play. And then they've got one of the best tandems in the league, probably, with Leonard and Fleury. So that's going to be a winning combination. So I think it's really going to be a battle between those two. And then, like, I would agree with you too that St. Louis is probably on their heels a little bit.
San Jose's a real long shot. That's a real hot take.
Yeah, the consistent backup for St. Louis, I think, is the thing that's going to hold them back. The fact that they've only got really Binnington, is going to hurt them.
Yeah. With
the compressed schedule.
Yeah. So the interesting thing I saw in this division, just how very clearly tiered it is. Because you go from like Colorado, Vegas, St. Louis are very clearly the top three no matter what, basically. Then you've got that middle tier that's, Minnesota, San Jose, and we'll kind of wait and see where Arizona falls. But Arizona could be in the middle or the bottom tier that could be with Anaheim and Los Angeles. And it's a very clear divide between all three of those tiers. So this division to me is basically just a competition between Minnesota and San Jose for that fourth playoff spot.
Yeah, I would agree again that I think LA and Anaheim are going to be in the bottom, which is definitely where LA wants to be. I think considering the prospect pool they have, and just keep getting better with the younger players because their core is pretty old now. And Anaheim, I don't see them being super competitive in this division. So it's really going to come down to Minnesota. Did they get, good enough to sneak a spot, or is San Jose going to bounce back? I think that's really, really the question in this division. Or, is Arizona going to be fueled by excellent goaltending, and is that going to be good enough in this division?
Yeah. For Minnesota, it's going to be, hopefully, they finally solved a bit of a goaltending thing over the last couple of years with Cam Talbot. They've had such good defense, but their goaltending's let them down. So maybe they could, assuming the offense stays about the same where it has been, in goaltending could, give them a decent edge that lets them compete there. And especially that they've got Kirillov and I think Matthew Boldy as well, who could be very offensive, talented players. And they could kind of give them that boost, that energy that the team needs to, improve in that category a little bit.
Yeah, and if Kevin Fiala shows that he's the real deal and can score at the same clip he did last year, I think, if they put it all together, I think they're going to be that final playoff team in this division. But, we'll see if San Jose can bounce back. But, you said that Minnesota answered their goaltending issue, but San Jose picked up Minnesota's goaltender. So, we'll see.
They have to compete with the health of their roster. That was an issue last year. They now get Minnesota's goaltending problem on top of that, on top of their own goaltending problem too.
Yeah, they solved their own goaltending problem by picking up another team's goaltending problem. So, I don't know. Maybe who's their goaltending coach? Like Evgeny Nabokov or something?
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
he can make some magic happen there.
Yeah, so Nabokov took over that position when San Jose made their coaching change mid last season, and the hope is that with a full year training camp, new season of that under Martin Jones's belt with Nabokov, that he'll kind of improve a little bit and maybe become at least an average NHL goalie. Maybe give Dubnyk an extra year or two on the end of his career, but it's hard to kind of say where they're going to end up this year based off of that, based off of the health of the roster. San Jose might struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough. With the defense that they have, you think that they would be able to help bail their goalie out, but also the defense that they have is too busy
offense.
At the other end of the ice. So, yeah. I should say the amount of money that they spend on defense, they should be able to bail their goaltender out, but they're too busy trying to score goals or on the IR. So maybe Carlson has had enough time to heal up, and he hasn't played in a long time. So
it's been 9 months for him.
Yeah. So maybe he's been able to heal up and rehab and focus on getting healthy, and maybe he'll be able to play a bit more this season and look better in a shortened season. But if they don't turn it around, those contracts are really, really bad.
Oh yeah, they're looking pretty rough in a couple of years with some of that money that's floating around. And the trouble is
absolutely.
They're kind of in a stage where they had a whole lot of roster turnover, not this season but the one prior, and into the early of 2019-2020 season. And they have all of these new players, all these younger players that were coming up. They never really found their place in the roster and produced the same as the players that they had replaced. And their cap situation is a little bit tight right now, which makes them unable to go and kind of fill their roster holes through trades and free agency. So they're stuck trying to just fill in these guys and have them playing, a line or two above where they should be on the depth chart. And they just don't have the space to navigate taking on any additional money. So a bit of a tricky situation there right now.
Yeah, and then the Coyotes, I really don't see them making a push. Their goaltending should be good, but I don't really think that adding Derek Brassard is really going to push them over the edge of where their scoring needs to be. And
they added Derek Brassard and lost Derek Stepan, so
yeah, there must be a Derek there at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see them having a very strong top six. I think that's the issue with that team is just their top end scoring. Phil Kessel didn't really work out. Clayton Keller is still waiting to get back to where his numbers were, I think, in his sophomore year. So, I don't know. Unless someone has an amazing breakout season for them, and they play excellent defensively and have excellent goaltending, I really don't see them being in the mix, because that top three is set, like you said, unless something dramatic happens on those teams, injury-wise, or, Marc-Andre Fleury gets stabbed in the back and it becomes a whole shitstorm. And Petrangelo's agent is on Twitter, like, talking shit or something. I don't
Theodore
think
gets stabbed in the back too by Petrangelo.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that they're gonna have a real tough time making it through. So I guess we're in agreement then that we see it as kind of Colorado, Vegas, and then St. Louis, and then Minnesota or the Sharks.
Exactly. And the Coyotes in the bottom. I mean, looking at the bottom of that division, Anaheim, they're kind of in a weird spot with their rebuild where I don't see them getting better, and a lot of their young players that they needed to produce, reasonably well to fit into the lineup did not work out last season. Looking at Max Jones and Troy Terry and Sam Steele and all them, they put up maybe like 20 points each at the most. And they need a lot more from those guys if they want to even compete, because the rest of the lineup, I think they maxed out with like Raquel and Silverberg and Henrique getting like low 40s for points. They need more offense, especially from these prospects who were supposed to be able to provide that. Maybe it was just like a sophomore slump, bit of a, nerves or whatever. The roster for Anaheim wasn't great. Nobody was really performing very well last year. But, they're going to struggle a bit, and I see them needing a couple more years to fill things out. But LA, on the other hand, they probably won't compete at all this year, but the amount of prospects in the roster that they might ice is potentially exciting. They could kind of get some of that youthful energy that gives them the pesky moniker for the year. Because it looks like probably Quentin Byfield's going to be on the team. They had Gabe Velarde make his debut at the end of last year, look decent. Tobias Bjornfoot's in the mix for on defense. And other guys like Jared Anderson Dolan could make the team. Like, there's a lot of open spots for these prospects, and they could easily see a handful of them make it and make an impact. So they could be kind of a weird wild card.
Cal Peterson might push to be the starter if his numbers are good enough. Because Jonathan Quick has not been as great as he historically was. And just a word on Anaheim, maybe Trevor Zegras pushes them into a bit more offense. He's probably going to at least see a little bit of time with them this year. I would imagine.
I forgot about him, but he's had an amazing World Juniors, so it's probably an easy make for him this season to hop into the NHL team. And on that note, too, Jamie Drysdale has had a pretty good time at the World Juniors as well, and could find a spot in the lower half of Anaheim's defense there. They probably want to get him in and have him.
Yeah, I think on defense, Anaheim is pretty set. They look like they have a pretty solid defensive lineup, but again, kind of similar to Arizona, just the top end scoring just doesn't seem to quite be there. I mean, Getzlaf definitely had a down year. I think Adam Henrique was the leading scorer of the team, and Silverberg I don't think had a very good year. So we'll see. But yeah, I think comparing LA and Anaheim, LA I think is the team that has the more promising turnaround because of the amount of prospects they have. And I think you're totally right in saying that they might be exciting to watch this year because they'll be a lot younger, I think, than they have been in the past. I think their core is still going to be up there. I mean, they've got, Carter,
Kopitar,
Drew Doughty, Kopitar, Brown.
Yeah. Like Iafallo and Kempe are kind of fitting.
But they've done a really good job at trading out. A lot of their valuable players like Martinez and those guys. So, and they've picked up, some faster young players like Andreas Athanasiou. So that should be exciting, some more speed into their game, as a lot of those older guys aren't quite as fast. So should be fun. And they also picked up notable Oilers killer, Oimata. So it's just a shame they're not in the same division, but that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so looking at this too on the note of LA's defense, that Drew Doughty makes more than every single other Kings defenseman combined. Just found that kind of funny. It's like Drew Doughty, 11 million cap hit, only Matt at 3.3.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, they have a pretty messed up defensive cap right here, because I also have it open, and they've got 11 mil in Doughty, then 3 in Mata, 2.6 in Walker, and then all the other guys are less than $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting way to structure your defense, but maybe some of those prospects can work their way in and show that they're worth, paying. Maybe not quite at Doughty's level, because oh my God, how many years left does he have on his contract? Because it looks like it goes off the page on Cap Friendly. It just keeps going.
You can't even see the end of his contract.
So no, that is a bad one. So it's just funny that both LA and San Jose have some interesting defensive contracts, and San Jose was not going to be one-upped, and they have 2. So fun fact. So any interesting kind of breakout players or candidates for a bounce back in this division that you pinpointed in any of those previews, Sean?
One, he kind of broke out per se last season, but while we're on the topic of LA, it's going to be defenseman Matt Roy. That he was one of LA's best defenders last year, and if he gets another chance, if he can maintain that level of play again this season, then he'll start to kind of give himself a reputation around the league within the team, because it's his contract year. So this could be kind of a make or break point for him if he can keep up what he did last year, make a name for himself around the division. He's going to be getting probably some tough minutes against some very skilled players in the games against Colorado and Vegas. So it could be a good year for him.
I just realized that you wrote the preview for all of these teams except for 2.
This is my division.
I wrote Arizona and Colorado, and
any
so
breakout candidates
kind of
on those
on
2 teams.
opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah, there's like a little unknown player named Nathan McKinnon. So I think he could be really good. But no, I mean, in honesty, I think as far as like kind of a breakout, and it's not really a breakout, but I think Devon Taves might get some respect on his name this season. It's looking like he might play top pairing with Cale Makar, and so I think that's going to bring a spotlight on his game and just what he brings to a team, and why he's so valuable. And I really think he's kind of going to get a little bit of just more of a spotlight on him, because I think he's a really great player, and I think it was one of the I don't want to use the term diamond in the rough, because that's not really quite what I'm trying to say, but I think it was a really good pickup in the off season, and I think easy to kind of blow past as just kind of a depth move, but I really think that was a great move by Colorado, and it really solidifies their blue line.
Looking beyond depth move, Taves is slotted in on the first pairing with Makar, so immediately going into camp, that's already looking like a trade they really want to work out. So he's going to get every situation possible to make this look as amazing as he can.
Yeah, I think so. And then I guess switching to Arizona, I don't know. I mean, they had a really bad offseason, to put it lightly. They've got a lot of work to do.
Maybe it's Phil Kessel's breakout year.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it could be Clayton Keller. He could prove that he's worth that contract, but honestly, I think it's probably going to be either Connor Garland or Christian Dvorak. Those are kind of my picks as kind of guys who, could push ahead and take a little bit of a next step.
I like that Garland pick. He looked, he looked kind of impressive, and like the type of guy who's going to be able to solidify probably a second line spot for himself, be reasonably productive, good energy player.
Yeah. So I think those are kind of the guys that they're looking to, take the next step. And Arizona's in a weird place where they've kind of got to start thinking about who they want to be in their core, like the next core, because it didn't work out, and they shipped out guys like Stepan, who was a big part of that team, big leadership piece. And so there's going to have to be somebody in that room that steps up and kind of, shows that, hey, we're still in this, like we're still a good team, blah, blah, blah. So those would be my picks.
One more guy. I want to switch over to St. Louis for a sec, but in St. Louis, you got Robert Thomas, who is looking to kind of break out in the lineup way this season. With Vladimir Tarasenko going to be missing significant time, there's a roster spot in the top 6 on the top line even that someone's going to need to fill, and the Blues are going to be looking at Robert Thomas to try and develop his shot a little bit more. So he's played 2 seasons with the Blues for right now, 33 points and 42 points in those 2 seasons, but he only had 9 and 10 goals over those 2 years, respectively. So they're going to be looking at him to develop his play a little bit. He could get some time with, say, like O'Reilly and develop the defensive side of his game, work on his shot a little bit and potentially fill some of what Tarasenko brings offensively. And it could be a real opportunity for him to jump into a more offensive role and produce a little bit more than he had.
Yeah, and he was really great in playoffs when they won the Cup, too. Maybe he'll be inspired by Krug now being on the team with him, and they don't have to headhunt each other anymore. But yeah, I think that's a good pick as well. Okay, so we'll move on to the glorious North, where it's the All-Canadian division, which I think is going to be loads of fun. It's going to be just a great division. I'm actually really looking forward to this.
I agree.
And yeah, you as an Oilers fan,
like a ton of amazing rivalries.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So I'm wearing the Oilers retro jersey.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. What is there, like 10 games against Calgary or something?
Oh God, yeah. We're gonna be. Yeah, I mean, we got Edmonton, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, like all these
Toronto, Ottawa
rivalries that teams. Yeah. All these teams that are now getting better finally. There's, more competitive hockey, more, renewed rivalries. It's going to be really fun to watch. And one of the things I'm most excited about this division in general is how competitive it's going to be. And the other thing is that all of these teams, except for maybe Montreal, have question marks in either defense or goaltending. And almost all of these teams also have some of the league's best forwards. So we're going to have like a ton of goals in this division, I imagine. It's going to be high offense, like physical games. It's going to be real fun. It
really is going to be a different feel in this division. Like, you hit the nail on the head, Sean. Like, the last division, the West, it seems like it's already decided. Whereas this one, it feels like, I mean, you might have a couple teams that you kind of eyeball and say, yeah, they might be in the bottom. But other than that, like, it seems like it could be anyone's game, just depending on how streaky a team gets, or, if they win a couple of close games, or if a goaltender steals a game for them. It's really going to be close, and it's going to be so much fun. Like, the rivalries are going to be insane. It's just a shame that there's not going to be fans there, because that would have been insane having
the atmosphere.
Yeah. But out of these teams, I think I made you go first the last time, so maybe I'll go first this time. But I really hate to say it, but I feel like Toronto might end up on top here. And I think that, I think we talked about this. Maybe it's been a long time, but I feel like we did kind of rate their off season, and both really liked what they did. They made their offense better. They made their defense better. They made their goaltending better by adding some depth. And so I really think that they have a really good shot at finishing first. Again, depending on how the season shakes down, that they could end up somewhere else. But going in, I think they have a really good shot at winning. And I'll save my ratings to hear what you think about who's going to win this division.
I agree. I think Toronto is just that one little step above the rest of the division. And even, like, that's such a small step that I think there's a couple of the other teams could jump Toronto with a right streak like you were talking about. But I think overall, looking at the roster and looking at recent year performance, Toronto is just a little step above, and they've probably got this division on wraps for themselves.
Yeah. and top line jumbo, which is clearly, as everyone's treating it, a full season move. It's not just a training camp move at all. It's kind of
Isn't it just fantastic though that Marner's going to have to play with his childhood idol?
yeah. You mean someone that Marner watched grow and play in junior. So weird. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Jumbo's a really good addition to the roster, and he's kind of, as much as it is a laugh that people are saying he's going to play on the top line,
I think Dubas just wants him to get 4 goals in a game, honestly.
Yeah, but honestly, like, he's taking spotlight away from the young players, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's taking away some of the, is Marner ready for training camp? Is Matthews really ready? Or blah, 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 right? That sort of discussion. Like, it's just like, oh, look at
Right.
Jumbo's beard. Like, look at how he's already in postseason form. So I think it's
Jumbo
honestly
knows how to manipulate the Toronto media.
honestly, I think it's great. Like, it's just what they need. They need that more lighthearted guy to be like, you know what? I'm going to not wear my shirt during this interview. There's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, I think it's been good. So I think that they're going to eke out first place. And then second place is really tight for me. But I'm going to go with Montreal here. I've been seeing a few other rankings, and I think people have been putting them far too low. I think that, again, we talked about their offseason and how they've improved, and that addition of Jake Allen as a backup, I think, is huge. Maybe I'm putting too much faith in or too much importance on the goaltending, but I really think that this season is going to be so important to have a good tandem.
I mean, look at the schedule and see how many back-to-backs teams are playing. You're not going to want to play your starter both of those all the time, right?
No,
Even
yeah,
if it's Carey Price, you need to have the backup there to play one of those games. You might see a lot more 50-50 splits in net this year. So for Montreal to identify that need and pick up a legitimate decent backup for Carey Price is going to be huge.
Yeah, and like the load management is going to be huge. Not overwork your goalie going into playoffs. But yeah, I think Montreal. Again, you mentioned that they don't have like that high end talent, but what they do have is basically like 3 1B lines almost. So
they have 3 really good second lines.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect word for that. So like, yeah, they don't have like an Austin Matthews, but what they do have is like Brendan Gallagher, Philip Deneau, Tyler Toffoli, guys who are good at what they do and all play kind of different roles, and can, like, Deneau is a great defensive player. Toffoli can shoot. Gallagher is a real pain to play against. So I really think that they've got a team that's built to win games, and they've got excellent defense. I think that they're going to be really hard to play against, and it's going to be really fun to watch them play against Toronto. And yeah, they're my pick for number 2. How about you?
2 and 3 for me are a toss-up between Montreal and Calgary. That I think ultimately in this division, positions 2 to 6 are a complete toss-up. It's going to be impossible to predict who's going to finish where. I think Montreal and Calgary are the most likely to finish 2-3 in some variation of that. Montreal, like, for the same reasons as you mentioned, they've got a strong team, and I think they've got a really good chance at being competitive consistently. Compared to some of the other teams like Vancouver, Edmonton might be way more inconsistent. They might get streaky, which might cost them a few points. So I see them as being the middle tier, fighting for like 3, 4, 5. Winnipeg's kind of in there as well, but they could easily be number 6 if Hellebuyck doesn't play very well. So like, after number 1, it's more of a toss up for any of them, because any of those teams could reasonably finish 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is very close. I actually have my top 3 are Toronto, Montreal, and Edmonton. But yeah, I think to me, Toronto and Montreal stand out a bit more, as I'm pretty confident they'll finish that way. But that 3, 4, 5 is going to be super close between, I think, Calgary and Vancouver especially, and then maybe Winnipeg, depending on, is Scheifele healthy? Is Laine willing to play second line? Is Hellebuck playing really well? Is their defense getting bailed out by Hellebuck every night? Because it did not improve. And then Ottawa is kind of a dark horse for stealing, one of those last spots, because I think they could be a team that teams underestimate and end up getting scored on by a bunch of young, nasty players like Tim Stützle.
The return of the pesky Sens.
Yeah, I mean, they honestly, they could be super fast. They've got like a young team. They've got some offense coming in with Dadonov. So they could be in the mix, but I see them kind of on the outskirts, or the outside looking in as far as playoffs, and Winnipeg as well. But I think between Calgary and Vancouver, it's really hard for me to pick. I'm not sure who's going to end up higher than the other. But I think Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton.
You have
all right,
more confidence in the Oilers than I do.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. As you're a fan, so you always going to be a bit more hesitant to be like, yeah, my team's going to be top in the division. You got to be a bit more reserved, and I get that. But I'm willing to put my neck out on the line as a casual fan of the Oilers, not as a hardcore dedicated fan as you. But I think that the Oilers, Draisaitl and McDavid on separate lines in the same power play. They were number one power play. Their penalty kill was amazing. They've just got to get some solid goaltending out of Koskinen and Mike Smith. The addition of Barrie should fill in on the power play.
Because you really need to improve one of the league's best power plays even more, right?
No, but you got to fill it. You got to replace Clefbaum, right?
Yeah.
So I think he'll fit in there.
His minutes are going to be hard, so they're going to end up having to dispense what he did over a few players. So Tyson Barrie comes in to provide the offensive mind and to fill in the power play time. Darnell Nurse and Ethan Bear are going to have to take a lot of the tough minutes. This is going to be a real make-or-break year for Nurse, because he's always had question marks over his defensive abilities. He's a great transitional player. He's a good two-way defenseman, and he's very underrated in what he does for the transition play and his carrying of the puck. But his defensive lapses were always a big concern, so this is kind of his make-or-break year. Ethan Bear's looking to take another step forward. He had a great rookie year last year. Reliable on all sides of the puck, like surprisingly calm and good defensively, so he's going to be probably picking up some tough matchups, maybe even some more penalty killing time. You're looking at Caleb Jones as well, who's going to be finding a bigger, more regular place in the lineup in Clefbaum's absence as well. They've got a handful of guys who can fill those bottom pairing roles, so it's going to be a rotating cast of like Chris Russell, Caleb Jones, Slater Cuckoo, and probably prospect like Broberg could make the team. Evan Bouchard could be around, so they're going to have a pretty good cast of defenders coming and going there. And
then you've got Adam Larson still, right, on the top end.
Exactly.
To play defensive minutes. Is that a question mark right now? I haven't heard anything about him.
He's the last couple seasons he's missed a lot of time with back issues, I think. So he's kind of in and out of the lineup. So he, you could see kind of the physical defensive side of the wear and tear on his body maybe not holding up. But he's also had a lot of time to rest and hopefully recuperate properly. So hopefully he'll be able to more regularly be in the lineup this year. Because like his physicality, his defensive play is very, very appreciated. Right. He plays a hard game.
Yeah, and then you've also got some new guys coming in or returning, I guess. You've got Dominic Cahoon, who could provide some more secondary offense. And then you've got Jesse Puljujärvi coming back. And Kyle Turris. So, some interesting offensive additions there that could really provide the secondary scoring that the team needs to kind of win games. So I think they've got a real good shot at, finishing in that top three. I guess just a word on the Canucks is that they've got the scoring, but a lot of the guys on that team had really good seasons, and I don't know if they can all back it up again. And then you've got a real question mark in net with Braden Holtby with, sub 900 save percentage last season. Can he turn that around? Is Demko going to be playoff god Demko, or is he going to be regular season okay Demko, or somewhere in between? And so that tandem could be really good, it could be really bad, or it could be somewhere in the middle, and just really not sure where they're going to end up.
It's even more pronounced with the question mark on the Canucks defense too, because that was an issue for them last year where they weren't strong defensively. They just kind of offensed out their problems. So if you have the less of a game changer goalie with Markstrom gone, are Holtby and Demko going to be able to pick up that MVP status that they need in net to stay competitive? That could be a tricky adjustment for them.
Yeah. Nate Schmidt's not exactly he's a good defenseman, but he's not particularly well known for being amazing in his defensive zone. And so, you look at the defensive guys on that team. You've got Edler, Tyler Myers, Jordy Ben. I don't know, because on the other side of the offensive defenseman, you've got Quinn Hughes, Nate Schmidt, and then you're going to have some rookies playing like Jack Rathbone or Ollie Uolevi or what's the other kid's name? Jalen Chatfield or Brogan Rafferty. So it's going to be a really young defense. And, I don't know. Are they going to be able to play defensively sound enough to make up for any lapses in goaltending? I'm not sure. So anyway, any candidates for a bit of a breakout or a bounce back that you wanted to point out?
So I'm going to start with Calgary because I've covered these guys in the past in a different episode. But looking at Calgary's defense, there's going to be a huge opportunity once again. I've taught for Rasmus Andersson to take another step forward, and for Juuso Välimäki, especially coming off of a season he missed due to injury. There's going to be a huge opportunity for him to jump into the lineup and make a big impact as well. He's pretty highly touted by the team beforehand, and he was supposed to make the lineup last season, but he never did because I believe it was an Achilles injury in training before the season started, so he missed the whole year. Looking over to Edmonton, for bounce back guys, you got Jesse Puljujärvi, who's just had a really good stint over in Finland with his old team there. He's coming back to the Oilers on, kind of a little show me 2-year deal. You have to hope that this time he's going to come in with a different mentality or a little bit more team-oriented mentality. I'm not sure what happened behind the scenes in his first stint with the Oilers that kind of led to the displeasure that he had with the team and kind of on both sides. But he's got a prime opportunity because McDavid's right wing is not solidified. So there's a chance for him, if he impresses, to jump up onto that spot and give him the opportunity because he's a shooter. He's got a great shot when he can find space and time to use it. And if McDavid can create that for him, it could be a great chance for him. Also on the Oilers, Tyson Barrie could have a bounce back year. He kind of struggled a bit in Toronto because he was shoved under Morgan Rielly for a lot of it. But this year he's going to be the guy offensively for the Oilers. The Oilers have not had a legit offensive defenseman in a very long time, and Tyson Barrie fills that role. He's going to be, like we talked about earlier, he's going to be the number one power play. Like, that's going to be his. And they're going to need him to drive that to create as much offense as possible because that's kind of where the Oilers excel is on their power play. That's where they separate themselves big time from the competition. Lastly, moving over to Winnipeg, we talk about this pretty much every single time we talk about the team, how bad their defense is. But this year they've got Ville Heinola, who's done quite well for Finland in the World Juniors. He's going to come in, in game shape and ready to compete for a roster spot. There's a spot for him to jump into the lineup. You've also got Dylan Samberg, who is on the verge of being in the NHL as well. And both of these guys are left-hand defenders, and for lefty after Josh Morrissey on the Jets, you've got Ethan Beaulieu, Derek Forbert, and Lucas Pisa. So either of those two prospects, Samberg or Heinola, could easily jump into a lineup spot with the Jets this year, so they could make an impact.
You picked a lot of my guys. But I still got three. So on the Montreal Canadiens, I think Jonathan Drouin is due for a bit of a bounce back. He missed a lot of time last season. only played in 27 games, but had 15 points. And the season before that, he had 53 points in 81. And so, I see him, if he plays enough games, bouncing kind of back. And, he was playing well when he was in the lineup. So maybe having a bit more of an impact on the team. And then you mentioned Tyson Barrie. I'm going to mention Morgan Riley on the Toronto Maple Leafs. He had a significant, decrease in points. In 2018-19, he had 72 points in 82 games. And then last season, he had 27 and 47. And so obviously a lot less games, but, he was playing not as much power play time after Sheldon Keefe took over. And Barrie was getting those minutes, so his point totals dropped. He's always been kind of good both ends of the ice, but I think now we'll really see his point totals increase now that he'll be back on that power play. And then the last guy I've got is on the Ottawa Senators, Colin White. Last season, he had 23 points in 61 games, but the season before that, he had 41 and 71. And he's really one of the longest tenured Senators, which is weird to say for such a young player. He's only 23, so he's kind of been on that team. I think him and Thomas Chabot are the only guys left from that 2017 Eastern Conference Finals, and you can really barely count them anyway because they didn't really play that much. But I think he's kind of due, to play, to get a bit more offense going on the team. Now that they've got, Derek Stepan, who can probably play a bit more defensive of a role and provide a bit more veteran leadership. It can really create opportunity for these kids to, play some more offensive hockey, and I think he should have some better teammates this season. So, yeah, those are my picks that were left after you picked basically every other guy that I wanted to talk about.
I agree. I think that could be a good fit for Stepan to get a chance on a rebuilding, up-and-coming team like the Senators. A little bit more higher-end prospect for the team than him trying to do the same thing with Arizona, but it'll be a good chance for him to get a little bit of a different role, a bigger role, and more of a locker room role as well with those young guys. Yeah,
I mean, if you look at the moves that Ottawa has made recently, they've acquired Stepan, they've acquired Cedric Paquette, they've got Braden Coburn, so they've got some not that Paquette's as old as the other guys, but more stable NHLers that have been on some winning teams. Stepan not super recently, but they've been in playoffs. Stepan was on the Rangers when they made some pushes, and so can provide some more leadership to that team because this team did basically mass exodus all of their veteran talent, and so I think bringing some back in from other areas is a really smart move for them to help guide the youth on the team, because they've got a lot of players that are under 25, and so you really got to kind of show them how to be a professional athlete and how to compete every night and show up, and I think that's going to be super valuable for guys like Stützle and Tkachuk and Drake Batherson and even Thomas Chabot. So yeah, I think it's a really smart move for them, and another candidate for maybe breaking out on their team is Hogberg. He's a young goalie, looks like very talented, could really show that he's valuable, backing up Matt Murray. So yeah, lots to be excited for Senators fans. I don't think that they'll be super competitive, but like you were saying about LA being fun to watch and having a lot of younger players on it, I think the Senators will be much like that, and they're going to look damn fine doing it because they've got those sexy throwback jerseys on too.
Bringing it back to bringing back some goodwill with the fans.
Exactly, they had to do something. And like I was saying earlier, it's really going to be heartbreaking if they don't pay all of these young players when their contracts come up.
Imagine
because if they just do that again,
influx of talent on the other teams in the league if that happens again. Just like all of these amazing young players just going to other teams and making them better as Ottawa goes through yet another rebuild because they don't want to pay their players.
Yeah, just
that would be
sad.
Tragic.
So hopefully they can figure it out and be able to pay. But yeah, I don't know. Not sure. Anyway, that kind of rounds out the North Division then. So
it's not related to the divisions, but one last thing I did want to mention is that the guys over at the Fourth Line Minutes podcast, they put out on Instagram that they're going to be doing a bit of a Be a Pro, NHL 21 Be a Pro simulation with a player kind of following his career on their show. So they put out a post looking for names for the player to go through. So I threw out Taro Sugimoto. So I think I was really thinking after it's been 50 years since he's been drafted.